Hi everyone, I am Sneha, co-founder and CEO DevCompass. Again, thrilled to be back as always. I hope you guys are having fun over the stages that you have covered for the course, and the preparation for the Claude certificate is going well. This is the video 2 in stage 1. Everyone who's following us through the course, I am sure you are aligned, and I am hoping that you have watched all the previous 3 videos. For the ones who don't know, please head over to DevCompass.ai and you will get all the information around our Claude certification prep course. Let's get started. So today's video is going to be about the agentic loop, and we will talk a little more in detail about how Claude thinks in steps. Last video we established that an agent is Claude plus tools plus a loop and an entire system, agentic system, and I hope you remember the diagram. Today we are opening up that loop and looking at exactly what happens inside it. This is the most important video in stage 1, and the entire agentic loop is a skeleton of every agent you will ever build with Claude, and the 2 most common ways agents break in production both happen right here in this video. That's where we're going to talk about. And again, the motive of this is to kind of make you thorough through various scenarios that can come up in the exam, and it is going to test us a lot around these depths of, these certain topics and how things work. So let's understand it properly. So we have already seen the agentic system and how the loop works, but let's get inside the flow diagram. So this is a loop. Every step is on screen, and I am going to describe each one as we build down through the diagram. Let me take a pen. No, I don't want it. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Let's talk about this. Send message to Claude, right? So as usual in an interaction, you will send a message to Claude. That message isn't just the user's latest question. It's kind of 3 things bundled together. A system prompt, the standing instructions that you have written for how Claude should behave, because obviously you're expecting some response, and the full conversation history up to this point. Okay, whatever, if you have already done it. If it's a fresh start, great, the history is 0. And the latest user message. All of that goes to Claude in a single API call, and Claude sees all of it every time. The API call comes back with Claude's response. Okay, so Claude will generate a response, and it could be a message to the user or a tool call, whatever it is. Image generation, when you do, all of it works under the same hood. And here's where you need to pay attention, because Claude's response can be one of 2 things. It can be a message, a text that Claude wants to send to the user, or it can be a tool call. Claude saying, hey, I need to call a function. You don't know which one it is until you look at the next step. Step 3 is the decision diamond in the middle of the diagram. Check, stop, reason. This is the most important step in the entire loop. Not what Claude has said, okay? Not whether Claude mentioned a tool name in its text. The stop reason field in Claude's API response, if stop reason is end turn, Claude is done. The loop has exited. It generates a message. There is no tool. It's just a response. It just sends the response to the user and exits. Done. If the stop reason is a tool use, Claude wants to call a tool to go to step 4. Step 4 is run the tool. Your code executes the function that Claude has requested, passing the arguments Claude specified. This is your code running. It's not the Claude, okay? Because we have seen it, that Claude is the brain, but there are so many other elements to it, and if you haven't, please go back to the previous video. So Claude made the decision, your code does all the work. Step 5 is add that result to the conversation. The tool result gets appended to the conversation history as a tool result message. Please remember these things. These will always be mentioned again and again in the walkthroughs in the course. So make sure you take it from there as well. and that result is now part of the context Claude will see on the next call. And then look at the curved arrow on the screen, the one that sweeps back to the top, which says the loop continues. So you go back to step 1, right? Now you have like a tool response message. So again, there will be a message to Claude. Probably it has, let's say, an example of the same customer support agent. It has probably asked order ID, and you give that message. Again, there would be an API call. Claude will generate a message until the diamond diagram and like that step reaches to a point where it is an end turn and there is no tool to call. It would continue doing this. Okay, so that's it. Claude reads the result, decides what to do next every time. Maybe it calls another tool, maybe whatsoever. It has now enough information, and then the loop exits. That's the whole loop. 5 steps, 1 decision point, and 1 exit condition. Now what next? Very important segment, as I mentioned, is the stop reason step, because this is exactly where the agents break. Now let's go here. This is the stop reason segment, right? So now what happens here? If you look at the left card, it says that loop, like if it goes through never check stop reason, the code will run the tool, add the result, send it back to Claude, then run the tool again and again and again. That loop will run forever. The developer wrote a code that runs the tool, appends the result, send it back to Claude, and then runs the tool again and again. Why will it happen? Because instead of checking the stop reason whether you have everything, the developer checked Claude's text output for some phrase like done or complete. But Claude doesn't always say done in exactly the same way every time. It won't be like, hey, this is generated. So if you look for any of these keywords or the step is completed, you will obviously run through an error. So the condition will never trigger cleanly and the loop keeps running. In production, this burns through API credits and often ends with an timeout or an out of context error. So that is first error where the agent might break. The right card talks about exit before Claude finishes. So Claude wanted to call a tool. The code saw Claude's response, assumed that it was done, and send it to the user as it is. So the loop is stopping way too early. Claude is wanting to call a tool to give you the exact information that you have asked for. It set stop reason to tool use. Now if it is using a tool, if the developer's code is kind of checking the Claude's response text and assume that it was a finished answer and sent it to the user as it is, the user will receive Claude's internal reasoning, a very half-formed response, because it never really went through the entire tool call process to come to a conclusion or a final answer that you really needed, right? And it would include something like, I'll look that up for you, without the actual lookup ever happening. So the tool never really ran, and that is where the user will get a broken response. And both are failures, same root cause. Because the developer is reading Claude's text inside of the stop reason field instead of it putting into a condition that if this happens, go to this step. If it doesn't, then go to this step. So the bottom of the slide kind of really simply mentions that both failures have the same root cause, not trusting stop reason, and that's a lesson. So don't parse Claude's text to control your loop, read the field every time you're building an agent. Please make sure that you don't do this mistake. And this could be one of the scenarios or questions in the exam. Now, let me show you how the code exactly look, or the correct loop pattern in a pseudocode format. So it's not like any specific programming language, pseudocode, because the pattern is very identical no matter whether you're writing Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, or anything else. So if you look at the code on screen, a while true loop, it runs until something breaks it. First line inside is call Claude with the current message history and you will get a response. Next step is stop reason check, which is the gatekeeper. The annotation arrow on the left says exactly that this is the gatekeeper. If stop reason is end turn, we call send to user response.text. So it will then break. Break exits the loop, clean exit, the user will just get the response and done. If the response for stop reason is a tool use, we will call run tool, fetch the information, okay, you input the tool that Claude specified, we get back a result, we append that result to the messages list. You remember we talked about adding that response to the final message so that it is continued to a loop and send to Claude again. So the tool result will now get into conversation history and then continue, which sends us back to the top of the while loop, back to Claude. Exactly how we talked in the previous diagram. 4 annotations on this code: the stop reason check, which is the gatekeeper, the break, which is a clean exit, the continue, which is a back to Claude step 1 kind of stuff, and the message dot append, which says result stays in context. Those 4 things are what every current agent loop does. If any of them is wrong or missing, your loop will break in one of the 2 ways we just talked about in the previous slide. Okay. Again, one thing that I want you to understand about the loop before we close is what happens to the conversation as it runs. So look at the 4 snapshots on the screen, which is each labeled by the turn number. First is before the loop starts. The user is given a system prompt, again taking the example of customer support agent, where's my order, okay? Just 2 things in the conversation: system prompt at the bottom, user's message above it, where's my order. That's the entire context Claude sees on the first call. Then you go to turn 1. After Claude responds with a tool call, look at the stack now. It's a new block at the top, that assistant block, right? But it's not a text response, it's a tool use block. Claude said it wants to call lookup order, that goes in the history. Now there are 3 blocks: system order, user message, assistant tool call. Turn 2. After the tool result is added, there's another block, right? Order shipped April 3, this was the result from the 2. So 4 blocks now: system prompt, user message, assistant, and the tool result. Now this is what the Claude will see. And then turn 3, okay, after Claude gives it the final answer, there would be an extra block added, which is the assistant's text response. Your order was shipped on April 3rd. Now stop reason, that diamond box, comes back as end turn. We send that response to the user and the loop exits. Watch that happens to the size of the stack as you go through these 4 snapshots. Like every time there's an addition, right? It grows with every turn. Every tool call adds a block. Every tool result adds a block. This is how the context window filling up. The same concept that we introduced in stage 0 and the one that we're going to go deeper on in the next video. So yeah, hold that thought. And before we sum up, I think yes, everything about in this video was around the loop, how check stop reason is important, stop reason is the gatekeeper, every turn grows the context, and this will matter later. So next up, we're going to talk a lot about context window, and there would be walkthroughs which gives you like a real API conversation log, actual JSON structure, not pseudocode, and ask you to find each step of the loop in it. Then you will look at the 3 loop implementation and diagnose what is broken in 2 of them. Do those before you come back for the next one. When you return, again, I've already mentioned the next video is about the context window. Specifically what it actually contains when an agent is running, how quickly it fills up, why do you run out of those tokens, and why that matters for how your agent behaves over a long conversation and starts hallucinating. So see you in the next one. Please do your assignments, please go through walkthroughs, and thank you for watching.